There we go. Ooh, back at it, back at it. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes to let some folks filter in. Oh, coming at you live on the Facebook, coming at you live on the YouTube page. So how's life, Brandon, while we're waiting for people to come in?
It's good. It is way too hot, as you know.
Talk about it.
The heat wave is destroying me. I'm ready for fall.
I'm ready for winter. I want a winter storm, like right now.
No. We do not need snow right now. Actually, snow would keep everybody inside, which we all.
See, I have things. I'm smart.
How are you?
Same, hot. It's just hot. Quarantine is still going, and we just trying to make moves. All right, go ahead and get started. So if you're tuning in, either if you're on the Facebook or the YouTube channel, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be talking a lot about college today. So whether you are whether you are a senior in high school and you're trying to figure out what is the next step for you and college is an option that you're considering, or if you are very starting your high school career or even middle school, really it's never too early to start thinking about college. Here is a chance to kind of get some tips, get some ideas about what you want to be looking for, things that you want to be doing and keeping in mind, because being LGBTQ and trying to go to college is a whole experience in itself. And we're going to break down what can make that challenging today. But before we get too far into it, once again, just thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this after the fact. We are trying to keep things going. COVID is real. The pandemic is real. Racial justice is real. So thank y'all for hanging in with us as we are trying to navigate all of those situations all at the same time. So just a shout out to everybody who is tuning in. And with all of that kind of taken out of the way, let me introduce you to Brandon Bishop, who is awesome. And I am pulling up the bio. Sorry, don't mind.
You're good. I can also say I was planning on saying it anyways, so whatever you want.
Okay, go ahead. go.
Great. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Saya, and thank you to Rainbow Alley for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Again, I hope you all are doing well and staying safe. I hope you all are finding time to either continue learning or hoping you are finding time to find your peace and find some calmness in this crazy time, as Saya was saying, about racial injustices happening and COVID happening. There's just so much on the brain. But sorry, like Saya said, my name is Brandon Bishop. I'm here to talk to you about college and what I wish I knew and just a little bit about me. Currently, I am a policy analyst at a higher education public policy organization. Before that, I was a graduate resident director at the University of Denver, which means that I essentially managed a residence hall and the resident assistants and the students who lived on campus in that one residence hall. I got my bachelor's degree from Arizona State University, and then I got my master's degree in higher education from the University of Denver. So I like to think that I know something about college. And then just more about my background. I come from a mixed race family. My dad is white. My mom is Latina, and she is very, as you can see, I do not look like my father, or I guess we don't have a photo of my father, but I do not look like him. I look like my mother. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college on my dad's side, and for my mom, her and her family immigrated here from the U.S. or from Mexico in the late 1970s. And one of the main reasons why I do this is seeing the troubles of accessing college and seeing how college has impacted the lives of my family and the people who are very kind of close to my family, and seeing how public policy and kind of systems of higher education affect that. And then also something that was very impactful for me was that when I was young, my mom was getting her degree at a community college, and so she was getting her associate's degree. And I think watching her graduate was such a huge moment in my life where I want to continue doing that work. And so I really do this work in higher education to help people access higher education, but also to succeed. Because unfortunately, there's so many different systems in place in higher education. It's just one little thing that can help someone be able to pursue their goals, pursue their dreams, provide for their families. And so I'm really here to help answer any questions that you have to help get you through this whole process. And
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm echoing, I think. No? Okay, sorry. But yes, so thank you for that. And speaking of questions, y'all, this is y'all's time to ask any questions you have about college, especially as we are going through things. And since we're talking about college, it may be a little bit more information heavy. So if there's something that you don't understand or we didn't really go deep enough into something, please feel free to post a question in the comment section. We will answer it. Also, moving forward, again, always got to shout out my girl Kendra, who is giving us ASL interpretation to make us as accessible as possible. Shout out to Rain Frog Interpreters for helping us out with our series. And with that, I'm gonna pass it right on to Brandon.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so I have a PowerPoint that's going to have information on it. I know some of us are audio learners and like to listen, and some of us are more visual and like to read. And so here, I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. And so again, navigating college and what I wish I knew. And so what we'll be talking about today. And so I kind of surrounded things into 3 different categories, and I'll try to throw in some personal stories or some jokes. There's not a lot of photos. I'm very sorry. But the main topics will be finding the perfect fit for you, everybody's most favorite topic about college, paying for college and navigating the Fafsa, and then navigating campus life. And then at the end, we left a very large amount of time for questions, just because I know everybody has their own very personal questions about very specific instances that they want to talk about, and I'm more than happy to answer those. And so we'll keep going. So finding the perfect fit for you. So there's a lot of different colleges out there. I think when I was growing up, my parents both being coming from fairly low income backgrounds and nobody really attending school in their families. My mom essentially only knew Harvard, Yale, and then the local school in her community. And so I only knew of these very small private schools that were people call prestigious. But there's actually so much more to that, and this is a really important question to think about to really finding your fit and what you want to do. And so the first 2 types are community colleges, trade schools, and technical schools. You attend these if you want to get your associate's degree, so this is only really 2 years of education or less, or a certificate. So this can be a certificate in plumbing, electrical hardware, air conditioning units, and fixing those up. These are really can sometimes be very hands-on certificates and degrees, but they can also be a little bit more in depth.
These are more focused on a specific thing, right? Like a specific field. Whereas other things you might be doing English, even though you're a music major or something like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so you might go into this saying, I want to have kind of the intro business administration degree. So you can go to your local community college. These are in most cities and a lot of places you can go. They teach a lot of different programs. They are typically the most affordable option. These tend to have more students of color, and they are a lot more, I guess, flexible with working with different types of students. So you can go to night classes, morning, day, online. Well, everybody's in online education right now. But when we're not in online education, they still do that. And so these are really great. I think I grew up, when my family moved, I grew up in a community that sometimes looked down on community colleges and trade schools, and that's not the case. You should be proud to go to one of those. Like, everybody has their own journey, and you just need to follow that. And so I say, be proud of that if that's what you want to do, because sometimes you got to do it. Next up, we have our public state schools, and so these are four-year institutions. And so we have our state regional schools, which you can think of as Metro State, CSU Pueblo, Colorado State, or CU Denver, and then you have your public state research schools, which are your CU Boulders and your Colorado State universities. These are typically four-year programs, even though you don't have to complete your degree in 4 years. You can take the time you need. But they offer bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and PhDs. They are larger campuses. They tend to offer on-campus housing, not all of them, but some of them do. And then these tend to cost a little bit more money to attend. So where community colleges can be usually less than $10,000, and most of them are probably less than $6,000. Your public four-year institutions might be between $10,000 and $20,000 if you're going in-state. And so these are very popular. The regional schools, again, tend to be a little bit more affordable than your larger public state research schools. But there's a lot of different options for you out there, and it's really easy to find your fit. Again, your public state regional schools are usually a little bit more in tune with the community and have a more community-based feel and community-based education programs. And so you might, if you're really in touch with your community, going to your local regional four-year might actually be a really good fit for you. But if you want to do a lot of heavy research and you want to go to a school that's really focused on that, then your public state research schools might be that for you as well. Next up, we have your private nonprofit institutions and your private nonprofit institutions that are religious. And so some examples of these might be like Regis University, the University of Denver, Colorado College. And so these tend to be more expensive. That's just how they work. This can be anywhere from $30,000 to $70,000. So it's a little bit more intimidating. They may offer you financial aid. This is something I actually wish I knew. Private schools will offer you financial aid to make it seem like you're getting a lot of money in your scholarships, which is a good feeling because you feel like you're being rewarded for something. But that might just lower the cost from $70,000 to like $25,000. And so you got to think about that. And then you also just need to think about if you're going to a private school, and this is something that was really big for me. I didn't want to go to a religious-based institution. I was terrified because my high school was fairly religious. It was a public school, but pretty religious. And I wanted to come out and explore myself and figure out who I was. And I didn't think I'd be able to do that at a school that had a heavy religious tilt to it. And so that's just something else to remember. And then finally, you have your private for-profit institutions. These are the ones that you see, like the commercials on TV. They're really good at like promoting themselves. And so this is like ITT Tech and like those types of institutions. These can be very expensive. And also they have been known to kind of prey on low-income students, veterans, families, and people of color to bring them into their institutions and then take advantage of them and not offer them the careers or the education that they wanted. So be very careful of those. I wish I didn't even know that. I was just like, oh, wow, ITT Tech has a lot of money. They're on every commercial in between every episode of TV. Maybe I should go there. And it's just one of those things. But like, hopefully you know that now and just be careful. If you want to attend those, like that's your choice, but just be very careful when you do that. And then some more types of colleges. And so especially for students of color, primarily Latinx, our Black and African American students, our Asian American and Pacific Islander students, our Indigenous and Native American students, you might need a different level of community, and it's very intimidating to go into a primarily white space that you know nothing about. You might also want to be able to go get an education with people who have similar cultural values as you, and go to a place that's mission is to educate based off of your identities. And so these are other different types of colleges, such as historically Black colleges and universities. These were founded with the mission of serving the Black and African American community. You can go to HBCUs even if you're not Black; it's okay. But these are primarily created to serve Black and African American students and the community. These HBCUs can be public or private institutions. They can be small to medium sized, but these are another great option. But there aren't any in Colorado. Then there's tribal colleges and universities, also known as TCUs. These were founded to provide higher education to American Indians, specifically with their cultural values included with them. Tribes typically oversee these and have some influence, and so these are a way for our Native and Indigenous communities to really retain their own identities within a very white and colonial system of higher education. And so this might be of interest to you as well. There are no TCUs in Colorado, but they are very spread out between the Southwest, the Plains, and the West. And so New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, and places like that. Next up, these are institutions that don't necessarily have a specific mission of serving specific student groups, but they meet threshold, or they meet kind of goals for serving specific groups, and because of that, they tend to do sometimes a better job. And so you have your Hispanic serving institutions, which, among other things, require your campus to have 25% Hispanic students. In Colorado, I believe we have one or two of these. I believe Metro State was recently designated as this. You also have your Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions, also known as ANAPSIs, and they have to enroll at least 10% of the Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander student population.
Wow.
Then, fun thing.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and this helps them get more support from the federal government to better serve students from identity groups that have never really been served well in higher education. And then you have your minority serving institutions, which again is just kind of meeting specific thresholds of different minority groups of students. And so, yeah, when you're considering college, think about what size of school you want to go to. Do you want to go to a small, medium, or large school? Do you want small classrooms? Do you want a smaller community? Or do you want to go to a huge school that, I went to Arizona State, the biggest, one of the biggest schools in the country. And that was, I lived in a small town and I wanted to get out. And I just wanted to be in this huge area. And so a school of 50,000, 60,000 people, huge football games, and different big events and concerts. And that was just something I needed. But then also thinking about what does your campus makeup look like? For a lot of people, if you're going to a school that's predominantly white, that can lead to some really interesting and hard experiences. Mm-hmm. But it's not all institutions are like that. And sometimes you just want a very specific type of mission, and that's okay. And so then keep going down. Another way to really figure out where you want to go is that there is this amazing tool called the Campus Pride Index. This shows you how higher education campuses, or what higher education campuses are doing to support LGBTQ plus students. You can search by state, campus, region, or kind of wherever, whatever you really want to search by. And so this is a really cool tool just for you to explore what you might be getting into and making sure that you're entering a space that's going to be supportive of you, that's going to celebrate you, and is going to give you the right type of growth and kind of necessary support that you need in order to be the person that you want to be. There's no need for you to go to a school that's going to make you force back your identity or make you feel unsafe or make you feel unwelcome, because how are you going to learn if you keep freaking out and being scared about what's going to happen to you, or whether your faculty are going to support you, or whether your roommate is going to help you out?
Mm-hmm. And just to add to all of what you're saying about Campus Pride Index, it's a really great resource. And I think what is really cool about it is you don't necessarily, it rates universities on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, and based on kind of meeting certain criteria. And I will say straight up, getting stars on Campus Pride Index is not easy. There are some pretty good universities that only have like 2.5 stars or 3, but that's because the criteria is very specific. But what's cool about that is you can kind of look into the universities and see what do they have versus what are they missing. It'll break it down to like I think at University of Memphis, one of the things, or University of Denver, one of the things was has campus police or campus safety, whatever the kind of thing is. Have they been trained to deal with LGBTQ plus issues? For housing, is there all gender housing options? Can you easily change your roommate, right? Can you easily be put into the dormitory of your gender identity? So don't sleep on this one. This one is, especially if you are LGBTQ, this is a really great resource to help you find your best fit.
Exactly. No, thank you so much for saying that. And that's actually a really good segue because I was going to show you all the website. And so let me pull it up. Oh. There it is. It's super cute. Lots of rainbow. And so right here, you can actually search by what you want to do. So we can go to state and we'll go to Colorado. Hit search. And then you can go down and you can see the different institutions that submitted. Not every institution submits. Let that tell you what it needs to tell you. That's not to say that every institution that doesn't submit does not support LGBTQ students, but priorities are shown by the work you do. And so we will go down to the University of Northern Colorado. Sorry, Saya knows me well, and I can sometimes be a little shady, but it comes with most of the time.
Honey, we are not shady. We are just fierce.
But yeah, like Saya was saying, they have kind of the star ranking system, where it's located at, how much it costs. And so this kind of answers all your questions that you might have about a specific school. And it lets them type in like what their commitment to LGBTQ issues are. And then also it provides you with kind of the report card showing you exactly what Saya was saying as far as like LGBTQ policy inclusion, student life, academic life. I'll talk about this a little later, but like housing and residence life can be hard to navigate and sometimes scary to navigate when you're in the community, whether you're coming out or you're transitioning. Like you want to make sure that where you're moving to is going to be supportive of you. And so these are really great questions to look at. And it's great questions to ask if they call you trying to recruit you. And you can just be like, so does your campus safety get trained on LGBTQ plus issues? And if they say no, then you can just be like, okay, great. Well, if I want to come here, I'd really like to see that. And they'll mark that down and they might actually implement it because admissions kind of runs supreme on a lot of campus issues. And then it finally gets to counseling and health and recruitment and retention. And so another good tab to remember is the counseling and health. And this talks about like trans-inclusive student health insurance plans, counseling, and things like that. And so this can kind of help you get to know the campus a little better, especially if you're talking to an admissions counselor or a tour guide and you don't know what to ask or you don't want to ask because you're in a group of people and you're just trying to like stay low key and like just kind of get through what you need to get through. And so yeah, again, the website is campusprideindex.org. You can type it into Google and it'll come up. But yeah, it'll be super helpful. And then finally, things to be aware of. A lot of campuses I've worked on college campuses and done a lot of things. Campuses are going to promote their best selves. People aren't going to go out and air their dirty laundry and say, well, actually, we treated students poorly. We don't give students this. And our police officers like respect our students, or don't respect our students. Like they're not going to come out and say that. So what I usually recommend people do is check the campus student newspaper to understand the campus climate. Your campus journalists are protected just like most journalists are in most cases. But they will be able to tell you a little bit of what it's like, what's happening on campus, and you'll be able to see how the administration responds to things. Be wary of campus promotions for diversity, inclusion, and equity. If you're a student of color, especially if you're Black or brown, your campus might try to get you on some promotional cards or mailers or magazines to be like, hey, look how diverse our campus is. And that's great. You know what? Hopefully they got paid for being on those promotional materials. But be wary of that and make sure to really look at actually what the campus like demographic makeup is. Again, look at the student newspaper and really understand what the campus, a lot of campuses might say, especially now in the last month, they might have said, oh, we are committed to racial justice, or we want to make sure that our Black students feel supported. But what does that actually look like outside of a piece of paper or a Twitter message?
Mm-hmm. And to add to that, be wary, especially if you get and I know that in this climate, this is not going to be as possible. But if you can, in the future, get a tour of the university that you're going to, and you're looking on this diversity inclusion part, what I noticed at some universities that I was touring was you would see a Black person on a poster, but you would see the same Black person in another pose on another poster, and then and so like it was actually just like the same Black people over and over again, and it just kind of, like Brandon was saying, just really changes what you think the demographics are going to be, and then you get there and then you're confused so why you're the only person that looks like you. So yeah, don't be very mindful of that, and you can look up the demographics of universities' student population. So feel free to like take time and look into that if that is something that's important for you.
Yep, no, thank you, Saya. Also, and like Saya was saying, if you can attend college fairs or go on a campus tour, do that once it's safe. But I really encourage this if you're able to do it, just because it's sometimes hard not to get a feel for it. Also, I feel bad because I saw my college campus one time before I went, and that was when I was 8 years old. And then I went on a whim, just thinking that it would be the right fit. So don't do what I do. There are also virtual tours and virtual college fairs, basically caused by COVID, but really participate in these. These are also really helpful for students who don't have a lot of money or don't have a way to travel to places. Like, this is a way to kind of equalize like what we can do. And then finally, don't be afraid to ask the campus questions. Like, literally, people are paid to answer your questions and to help you. So don't feel like you're bothering anyone. Like, most college like professionals are more excited to talk to prospective students, just because it's like why a lot of people got into the field. And they have emails, texts, phone calls. A lot of places are like developing apps or like kind of like weird chatbot things that you can click on and like type into, and it's usually someone else, like a person on the other end, that can answer questions for you. And so then next up, we're going to be talking about paying for college and navigating the FAFSA. Just to kind of start off, this can be a little hard. Paying for school can be stressful. It's stressful for everybody involved. And it's hard to navigate just because, like, depending on like your different identities, who you are, your family, like that can just further make this a tougher conversation, especially if you're doing this alone. And so let's just talk about like, how do I even pay for school? I grew up my whole life, again, family just did not have a lot of money and kind of was just like paying everything that they needed to pay. And it was kind of under the intention, my mom was like, go get scholarships. And I'm like, cool, where do I go to get scholarships? What do I do to get a scholarship? It is confusing and it's hard. And so there are a bunch of different types. And so you have your federal grants and scholarships. And so when you fill out the FAFSA, you can get a Pell Grant or other financial aid. You can get federal loans. And so you have subsidized loans, which don't get interest, or you don't have interest build up while you're in school. These are the better, of all the loans, these are the best loans. Coming from someone who's literally paying loans right now. You have your unsubsidized loans, which are the interest accrues while you're in school. And then you have Parent Plus loans, which are loans that your parents can take out. And again, this is a huge ask. Like for me, like I legit like brought that up one time and my mom was like, we're not taking out loans. We can't afford to take out loans. Why would we take out a loan? You can take out a loan. Like, cool, not doing that. You have work study, which means that you work on campus and part of your pay is going to your tuition. You have your school scholarships that are usually given to you when you receive your admissions letters. And so this might be like, oh, you had really good grades in an ACT score, so we're going to give you this amount of money. These can also be need-based. And so a lot of colleges and a lot of states are moving to need-based financial aid. So that means, is your family like low income or working class? Then those states or schools might give you more money to support you because you don't have kind of the generational wealth or like the family income to actually support you going to college. You also have state scholarships and financial aid, and so Colorado is actually is like a really good example of states that provide a large chunk of financial aid and scholarships. Additionally, Colorado, and we'll get into this a little later, Colorado is one of the few states that offers state financial aid for undocumented students. So that's also really important to remember.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yep. Private scholarships, and so these are like, you can go on websites, go to like scholarship.com or something like that, and there's like a list of like hundreds and hundreds of scholarships that you can apply for. Do these are really helpful. They might take a little bit more work, but that $500 adds up if you get 4 of them. Like that's $2,000. Like that's a lot of money. And then finally, you have private loans. I took out private loans just because like that was my situation. These are typically done through like banks or other means. These have high interest rates and can sometimes bite you in the butt. Not super fun, but if you have to do it, you have to do it, and I get it. But yeah, and so these are just some of the examples of how you pay for school.
So before we move forward real quick, something I wanted to just touch on with like scholarships, especially like the merit-based scholarships, and especially for even if you are, your senior year, you're thinking about college, but especially if you are a first year, second year, early in your high school career, start thinking about like if you are in band or you're an athlete or you are whatever kind of your talent is. You can get scholarship money just for playing your instrument or for playing your sport or for being the leader of your GSA, whatever that is. There's a lot of scholarships through the school that you can get just for your talent and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, I got into school for playing piano, so now I have to be a music major. You can still do whatever it is you want to study and still play piano, make some money for your scholarship so you don't have to pay loans or get loans or things like that. So just something to be thinking about and keeping in mind. So like for those of you who are, I don't know, and I say this as a band kid, for those of you who may be in band and are like, oh my God, this sucks and I don't want to do this anymore. If you're thinking about going to college, you might want to reconsider. Hard work can pay off. Yeah, and you won't be doing it for the rest of your life. Just do it till you get through school.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes. But yeah, there's scholarships for so many different things. And if you have a talent or a hobby, you'll probably be able to find something. And there's so many people who don't apply for these that you can apply and you have a good shot once you do it. And so this is the part that's going to get a little jargon heavy, but this is going to be something that will be really helpful for you when you're navigating this. And so next up, we're going to talk about the Fafsa. So this is basically the federal government created this in order to better assess student need and to give out federal and state financial aid. It's called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Navigating the Fafsa in general, no matter who you are, is really hard. Navigating the Fafsa and paying for college is even harder if you're LGBTQ+, and you do not have a stable relationship with your parents or guardians, or if you're expecting to have an unstable relationship in the future. So what do you do? So things to keep in mind are typically the Fafsa opens in October, and the last day is typically in June the following year. This can differ by state and by institution, but those are usually the guidelines that they set. Again, COVID, she's messing with everybody right now, and so these might change in the future, but this is typically the scale. If you and your parents or guardians have a good relationship, all you really have to do is just fill it out, and that helps you access federal financial aid, state financial aid, and your institution financial aid.
And you will need your parents' tax information for that.
Yep, you're gonna have to ask your parents to basically help grab their taxes. Now it's made it a little easier to where if your parents do their taxes every year, doing the FAFSA should only take like 3 clicks for them, instead of like me standing like behind my mom as she's like looking up her tax information, like getting angry with me because I don't know what, like, I'm 17. I don't know what I'm talking about with taxes. I've never filed taxes. And my mom's like, what the, like, why don't you know about this form? Or why don't you know about this box? And I was like, I'm not the federal government. That is not my job. But depending on your family situation, this can really kind of depend on you can go a few different routes. And so what do you do if your parents or guardians are not supportive of you or not in your life? Unfortunately, the FAFSA rules are very rigid, and it makes it really hard for LGBTQ plus people and low-income people and people of color to submit. This is just kind of a plug to just keep organizing and fighting for all aspects of LGBTQ plus life, and make sure that they're supported and respected. Down to the nitty gritty, there are weird policies that always impact us, and we got to kind of keep untangling those. And so for your 2 options are your parent or guardian situation meets one of the 4 requirements that I will go into the next page, or your parent and guardian situation does not meet one of the 4 requirements, but still do not support you. So the 4 requirements are your parents are incarcerated, you have left home due to an abusive family environment, you do not know where your parents are or you're unable to contact them, but you have not yet been adopted by someone else, or you are older than 21 but not 24, you are unaccompanied and you are potentially homeless, or you're self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. Unfortunately, these tend to describe some of the experiences that a lot of LGBTQ youth experience, and so it's just good to lay these out because not a lot of people know about this. If you meet one of these criteria, you will need to submit the FAFSA still, but you will need to contact the financial aid office at your school immediately. I usually recommend calling before you submit. That way you can know what you're expected to do. They may ask for proof, and so this could mean legal documents for your parents who are incarcerated. This might mean legal documents from like any proceedings with your family in different environments. And so again, this process unfortunately can be sometimes fairly activating or bring up old wounds that you've experienced in your past. And so it's just one of these requirements that forces you to do this. This is institution by institution. And so if you're applying to a few schools, I always recommend calling the financial aid office and just saying, hi, here's my situation. What do I need to do in order to get scholarships for myself? Because they might try to say, oh, just do it this one way, but that will only get you a loan. It won't get you scholarships. Scholarships are free money. Loans are money that you have to pay back. And so just always be aware of that. You're your biggest advocate. And if you always need help, like, try to find other people who can also help you out along the way.
And I would say too, with that, especially if your parent or guardian, for whatever reason, is not able to help you, because so there's, maybe they're not supportive of your gender and sexuality, and that's been a core issue. Or even if you're a first generation college student too, your parents may still struggle not knowing exactly what to do and how to help you. So try to find, and especially if you are in the Rainbow Alley community, please feel free to reach out to me, but find a mentor or a teacher or someone that you look up to, especially if they are LGBTQ, and, reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm interested in going to college. And let me tell you, any adult is going to be like, oh, you want to go to college? Okay, great. Let's talk. Well, they'll make the time. So don't feel like you have to go through it all by yourself.
Exactly. Like, you're not alone. People are here to help you. Like, a lot of people have, the great thing is that a lot of people have gone through these struggles before you and might have tips and tricks along the way. Next one, this is the situation that I think describes a lot more people kind of navigating the FAFSA, is your parent or guardian situation does not meet one of the 4 previous requirements, but they still do not support you. So what do you do? Unfortunately, you'll still need to submit the FAFSA. And then once you do that, you're going to need to immediately contact the financial aid office at your school you want to attend. Contact them before. I just keep recommending that. They may still ask for proof from your parents that they're not supporting you. This may include a letter from your parents, which again makes no sense. These rules sometimes seem very arbitrary, where it's like, oh, your parent didn't want to fill out the FAFSA form. Why would they even make a letter for you?
Exactly.
And so another one of these situations is that for both this situation and the one that I just talked about, you can also get letters from counselors, social workers, community people that you're close to. And so people at Rainbow Alley who know you very well and know your situation can actually serve as someone to write the letter or write the proof for you to say like so-and-so is going through a very difficult time. Their parents don't support their transition, but they want to go, they want to go to school. That might count as one of the 4 reasons ahead of time. And the institution might say, oh, this is actually really great. Like, do this, and then we can get you financial aid so you can get out of that situation. Or they might point you to like a private scholarship that the institution does to even help pay for school more. And so it's always helpful to ask, be as honest and open as you can, or as you're willing to be, with the financial aid people, because that might help open them up to more questions or more opportunities for them to help you out. And so it's really hard. I wish I could offer you better answers and better support in this. People are fighting pretty much daily to keep making the FAFSA actually help students and not just make it a hindrance. But it is a very helpful way to get you to that point. And then finally, navigating federal financial aid and support if you or your family is undocumented. As you all know, if you watch the news or you talk to people, DACA and being undocumented is a very difficult process and just a difficult way to be in this country. And a lot of people are not welcomed in our country because we have government officials who say that they're not welcomed and attack them. This still does not stop them from attending school. LGBTQ plus people can be undocumented, undocumented people can be LGBTQ plus, and the intersection of those identities can make it even harder sometimes. But this process can be rightfully scary depending on you or your family's immigration status. Again, you're not alone. There are so many people, advocates and organizers and policymakers who are there who have been through this or want to help. Do what you feel comfortable doing. Knowing from friends and family, being in these situations are not always easy, and you have to make a decision that's going to end up just affecting everybody around you. But there are resources for you, and I recommend looking at the websites below and contacting these organizations if you have questions and want to pursue DACA, or if you have questions about filling out the FAFSA if your parent or guardian is undocumented. So you can go to United We Dream, Home is Here, the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition, and the National Immigration Law Center. These are just 4. But these are organizations that can help you with the legality of navigating DACA, navigating how to do the FAFSA, and maintaining that your family is safe while you're doing these processes. Additionally, some college campuses also have staff or offices, some college campuses have staff or offices that are dedicating to supporting undocumented students and helping you through this process. And so you can literally type in CU Boulder undocumented student support into Google, and it'll pull up their website that offers the various ways that they will help you. If you are attending college soon, I recommend pursuing these options as quickly as possible and working and trying to reach out to one of those 4 organizations to find a lawyer to help you through this process. Currently, DACA, unfortunately, has been going back and forth within the Supreme Court and policy and public policy, and at any point in time, it can get taken away or made harder. And so just do what you can as quickly as you can to get the money that you need to go to college. Finally, Colorado does offer in-state tuition and financial aid to undocumented students. This is huge, and this is really helpful because it sees you as who you are, which is a citizen of this country, and it makes it easier for you to access college. And so now we're getting to kind of the final part of this talk, which is navigating campus life. So what to consider when you're about to go to campus or when you're on campus. And so first off, campus housing. This is something that has been really close to me, working for 2 years at the University of Denver, and things to consider. Does your campus offer all gender housing, and do you want to live in an all gender community? LGBTQ plus living communities. And so these can be areas where all the students on the floor are LGBTQ plus or an ally of the community. And this is focused around, and the community might focus on identity development, supporting yourself, activism and advocacy, and different things like that. Next up, you'll want to think about roommate selection. So who you live with is really important. In my time at DU, I have handled so many roommate conflicts, way too many. You have to figure out like what you want and what you need, and you need to be honest with yourself. Like, are you a messy person? If you are, you just need to own that. Like, and don't lie to someone saying, "Oh, I'm super clean. I clean everything," because then week 3 is gonna come. You're gonna be living a lie, and you're gonna throw all your clothes on the ground and just be like, "Forget it. I'm who I am." And then
especially when the stress kicks in.
Yup. And then your roommate's gonna be like, "Oh, like Marsha, what are you doing?" And you're gonna be like, nothing. And you're gonna be like, "I thought you said you were cleanly." And then it just starts like all these different things. More importantly, you also want to make sure that you find a roommate that's going to support you. And so be as open and honest as you want when you're looking for a roommate. If you are considering transitioning and you feel comfortable with the person that you might live with, feel free to tell them that, but also you don't have to tell anybody that, and you can wait till you get there and you can do what you need to do. And then once you kind of start navigating what you're doing, you can tell like a graduate resident director or a staff member or your RA, and most RAs are kind of trained to help you through that process, or at least trained to get you to someone who can help you. And then finally, room changes and roommate disputes. Some campuses allow you the opportunity to leave. You're like, "Oh, I don't like this person. I need to get out of here and find a better situation." And you might be able to get that opportunity, but you need to make sure that you ask before you get there, because some places don't do that, and they'll just be like, "Well, you live here and you have to live here, sorry," and you're kind of just screwed. And then finally, roommate disputes. That's what RAs are for, to kind of help mitigate those, but also like make sure that you're being respected and make sure that people are treating you like correctly. Your identity should never get called into question, especially in a roommate dispute. And if that's the case, you need to go tell someone immediately, because like that campus should be serving you and helping you out and getting you out of like a traumatic or unsafe space.
At any point within that, is there any room for like Title IX or anything like that?
Yeah, so depending on the situations, and this is kind of the tougher part.
Also, you might want to define what Title IX is.
Yes, so Title IX is a law that was created in the 1970s. Usually before you get to college, or actually now I think a lot of people see Title IX as either the law that created a 2-gender sports system, so like men's and women's sports, but then it also kind of created ways to make sure that people were not being mistreated, or mistreated based off of their gender identity, and like what I guess now could also be included within your sexual identity. And so, or your sexual orientation. And so what that means is that, like, depending on the situation, if you are assaulted in any way, so if someone kind of like heckles you, calls you out, attacks you, things like that, like the unfortunate parts of being LGBTQ plus, but if you experience some level of hatred or assault, including sexual assault, Title IX will be the place that you might want to go. Kind of things that I would tell you before you start that process is that a lot of institutions, especially if you're assaulted, or especially if you're sexually assaulted, have to report that information to other people. That's not to scare you. That is a way to hold institutions accountable. But it also doesn't serve all students well. And so a lot of campuses offer resources or have offices that are not mandated to report sexual assault or gender-based violence. and you can talk to them and they can talk you through kind of your like options. And so anything as small as someone making lewd comments to you about your gender, or not even small because that's a big deal too, but anything from someone making lewd comments about your gender identity, all the way to someone like sexually assaulting you, anything in between that can go to gender-based violence offices or your Title IX office. And so I would not say be weary of them, but just be aware of their purposes, because sometimes, in all honesty, Title IX offices don't always serve students the best way.
Yeah, sometimes it's more for the university to keep things under wraps, because who wants a school that has a very high sexual assault rate, right?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And so I think finding the places on campuses that don't have mandatory reporters, also your campus healthcare, so like your doctor or your counselor, they are almost always not mandatory reporters unless it's something very, very, very extreme, like a serious and present danger to yourself. But yeah, those are kind of the different options. And so the unfortunate part is like that is a part of college life. It shouldn't be, and we should continue to kind of keep dismantling systems that enable like offenders or kind of enable people to do these things. Like we should continue to take those down and hold people accountable, but just be aware of your options and just know that like if something does happen, there is support. And I guess that's a good segue into campus healthcare. So again, depending on your situation, especially with your family, you might need to find healthcare because you no longer talk to your parents or your guardians, and you need to find a way to stay healthy. Many campuses provide their own healthcare, and a lot of times you can use your financial aid, or you can use like your state or federal financial aid or your private scholarships to pay for this healthcare. Some campus health insurance plans, again, cover transitioning costs and cover other costs that are kind of important to the LGBTQ community and that care that like LGBTQ plus people typically seek out. And so this is really important too to really consider. Some campuses, I will just be completely honest with you, do not promote that their insurance plans cover transitioning costs because they're afraid of political repercussions or they're afraid of community repercussions. But it can be there, and if you ask, someone can usually say, oh yeah, that's there. We don't promote it, but it's here, which is not always a great feeling, but at least you have it. Additionally, and then finally, kind of the fun part of college is your campus activities and engagement. You're there to learn and to learn about yourself, and I believe that your campus engagement and participating in clubs and like organizations is a very important part of your development, and it helps you kind of come into your own as a leader and as a person. You learn how to work with people, you learn how to settle differences, you learn firsthand what communication is and how to like run events and plan things and budgets. And it's just really important to kind of do these things before you graduate, because now you can be in a job interview and be like, oh, I was president of like our LGBTQ plus organization or our GSA, and I managed a budget of $20,000 and had a club of over 30 people, and we planned our Pride prom, and we participated in our community's like Pride parade, and then we also offered like support to like high school students who are LGBTQ coming into college, and that's a big deal. Like all those things are huge things, are huge accomplishments that people who are hiring can be like, oh wow, like you have a lot of experience in doing this work. Like we should consider hiring you. And so that's important just for your future development, but it's also just good for you to find your community. College is hard to do alone, and finding people who support you and people who love you and people who want to see you kind of be yourself and see the best things for you can make college a better experience and help you navigate the tough times. You're there for 4 years, so might as well buckle in, find some best friends, and really just have a good time. And there are clubs for everything.
Literally everything.
Oh yeah, literally everything. When I was at DU, I advised a club that their whole sole purpose was going places and grilling food for people to eat. Like, people who just wanted to make food and eat it. And that's cool. They were their own little group of people who cared about each other, and it was fun for them. And like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But there's a lot of great things to do. You can get involved in your student government and kind of advocate for policy change. You can be part of advocacy groups. Again, there are cultural organizations and identity-based organizations. So again, you have your like LGBTQ plus organizations. You have your Black and African American student organizations, your Latinx student organizations. So many different places.
And I would even say too, to add to that, if what you are looking for is not there, you can make it yourself. You want to do a cosplay club? Start it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Oh, no, thank you. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you have something that you just love, there's probably a few other people who love it on campus, and then you all can talk about it. And that's kind of the fun part of college, is that it's kind of sometimes a make your own adventure where you can choose and say, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And then you kind of just have to fit the puzzle pieces in, and at the end you'll receive your degree, and that will help you go places. And so yeah, that is it for my kind of spiel and talk about things. I'm here to answer any other questions you have, no matter how extremely specific they are, to something that's incredibly broad as well.
Yes, so drop any questions you may have in the comments section. We will answer it. I'm trying to think. As we are waiting to see if anyone drops us a question, Brandon, is there anything else that you may not have talked about, was something that you wish you knew about college before you went?
Trying to think. I think something that I guess I wish I knew was that before you get to school, you don't have to figure it all out. So day one of college, you do not have to know, I'm going to get this degree, I'm going to get this minor, I'm going to then get this job, and then this is my whole career trajectory. I am a very type A person, where I'm like, goals. And so when I realized that what I wanted, like, I think I went into college thinking I wanted to be a lawyer because I like arguing, I like being right, but that was not the life for me. I think I took one legal class and I just thought, nope, not for me, getting out of here. And I had to kind of start rethinking that. And the other piece of it is like, you start to understand your own identity better. Being Latino, I went to a high school that was extremely white and, went through things. But when I got to ASU, I was taking like intro to like Chicano studies and like other classes like that. And I learned so much about myself. And that kind of opened up this like new thing in me where I was like, I want to take a career to serve people, specifically people who are similar to me, and to make sure that like I'm helping others. And so I think I changed career trajectories like 5 times. I didn't make the decision that I was going to go to grad school until a year before I graduated. Literally did it on a whim.
You better than me.
I just like, sometimes you just have to let the universe take hold. But I think it's okay to not know what you're going to do. It's okay to change your mind. And don't feel intimidated or scared when you're there on your first day and you sit next to someone who's like, I'm a like business administration student and I'm going to minor in French and Portuguese, and then I'm going to study abroad here, and then I'm going to work for this Fortune 500 company and make millions of dollars. Like, it's scary when you hear that, but you're just like, cool beans, you are your person, you can do that. I'm just going to ride with this.
Truly, sometimes you just gotta go with the flow, follow the path, see where it takes you.
Sometimes the universe throws things your way, and you're just like, what am I doing with this? And then, oh, you're getting a master's degree in something you never considered.
And I know we are harping so much on college, y'all, but please, if you don't feel like college or university is for you, like we said before, there are trade schools, there are technical schools that are gonna get you just straight from where you are, the career path that you want to be on, and you don't even have to worry about it. So totally don't skip on at least looking into higher education and seeing what options are going to be best for you. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what Saya said. It's okay to go to a community college. It's okay to go to a trade school. Go learn how to be an auto mechanic and like be the best auto mechanic that you can be, and just go with that. Like your journey is your journey, and no one can comment on that as long as you're not hurting anybody else. Do you? And like as long as you have like some certification or some further knowledge, like that can be really helpful. And even if you don't, like take some classes here or there at a community college and be happy with that. And like you don't even have to get an associate's degree. You can just learn.
Awesome. Cool. I'm not seeing any questions popping up in the comment section, so we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. But feel free if you do have questions about college, about what to do after high school, even if it's not college, feel free to reach out to me and you can start that conversation because, you know, you need to get as much support as you can. Brandon, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think one, you deserve to be in those spaces. There's probably a lot of, I guess, like images and like media that sometimes reinforces that like you might not belong in those spaces or you don't need to be there, but you do. Forget anybody who thinks that you don't. Go in there, prove them wrong, do what you got to do, and like walk across that stage, own it, and like it's a really great way for you to kind of find yourself. And so again, follow your path. If you have questions, always ask. People are always willing to help, especially reach out to Saya. If anything, you might get your questions, and I might be the one answering them. So,
sure. Forward them right on.
Please do. But always happy to answer any other questions and help people out. And so, yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, stay well, and hope you find your peace.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Whether or not you're watching this live or you're watching it after the fact, we appreciate you. I messed up, so there will be a survey for folks to enter into a raffle. You must do the pre and post. I will get those on the Facebook page ASAP. So feel free to fill those out. You must be anyone can fill out the surveys, but you must be a youth in order to enter the raffle. Yep. And also join us later this week on Thursday at 6. We'll be having Amanda Jameson talking about the world of backpacking. So for all of my outdoor people who love to just be in the wilderness and do all of that, that's not me. But join us on Thursday at 6 live, same way on Facebook, on YouTube, and we'll be still giving out information for the people. And with that, and also final thank you to Kendra for interpreting this session with us today. Such hard work. We appreciate you. And with that, let's just keep it clean, queer, and under control. And I'll see y'all next time.
Bye.